Stoicism, the art of living with wisdom. Have you ever found yourself wondering why some people seem so serene, even when everything around them is in chaos? How do some people manage to stay calm under pressure, while others are consumed by frustration and stress? The answer might lie in an ancient philosophy that teaches us how to live with more wisdom, balance, and emotional control. That philosophy is Stoicism. Stoicism, developed in ancient Greece by philosophers like Zeno of Citium, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, may seem distant and irrelevant to the modern world, but in reality, it offers extremely powerful tools for dealing with the challenges of contemporary life. If you've ever felt that external situations, like problems at work, financial difficulties, or even the dramas of everyday life, have the power to affect your peace of mind, Stoicism may be the key to regaining control of your life and finding a new way to be happy. What is Stoicism and how can it transform your life? When we talk about Stoicism, the first thing that comes to mind for many people is an ancient philosophy from great thinkers who lived more than 2,000 years ago. But in reality, Stoicism is not something that belongs only to the past. Its principles and practices are highly relevant today and can be directly applied in daily life to help us navigate the ups and downs of modern life. Stoicism is, above all, a practical philosophy. It's not just for study or admiration from afar, it was designed to be lived. The true message of Stoicism is not just in the words of Seneca or the meditations of Marcus Aurelius, but in how you apply these teachings to live a more peaceful and balanced life. If you're seeking greater inner peace, less stress, and more control over your emotions, then Stoicism is for you. The first lesson: controlling what is under our control. The Stoics teach us a fundamental lesson from the very beginning: focus on what we can control. This is absolutely crucial, especially in a world where people often feel powerless in the face of events happening around them. Too often, we get carried away by what is beyond our reach, and as a result, we suffer unnecessarily. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." This means that, while we cannot control what happens in our lives, such as an accident, a misunderstanding, or a financial crisis, we can control how we react to these events. Stoicism teaches us to adopt an attitude of acceptance toward what we cannot change and to focus our energies on what is within our control: our choices, our reactions, and our attitudes. Imagine you're facing a major problem at work. You have a tight deadline, and a series of obstacles appear along the way. The first reaction for many people would be to panic, get stressed, or even argue with others. But Stoicism invites us to stop, reflect, and ask ourselves, what is under my control here? The answer is simple: my attitudes and decisions. What can I do to deal with this in a calmer and more effective way? What practical steps can I take to resolve the problem? By focusing on what we can control and accepting what we cannot, we gain a sense of power and freedom. This freedom allows us to respond with wisdom and calmness, rather than being dominated by emotions and chaos. The importance of virtue in Stoic philosophy. Another essential pillar of Stoicism is the pursuit of virtue. For the Stoics, virtue is not just about being good or morally correct, but about living in accordance with the principles of reason and nature. Virtue, therefore, is seen as the path to a full and satisfying life. The Stoics believe that true happiness does not come from external things, such as wealth or social status. On the contrary, it comes from living with purpose and moral excellence. This means acting with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, the four pillars of Stoic virtue. Wisdom, the ability to make decisions based on reason, reflecting on what is right and what is best for the well-being of all. Courage, the ability to face life's challenges with confidence and calm, without being overwhelmed by fear or anxiety. Justice, acting with fairness and respect for others, treating everyone with dignity, and seeking the common good. Temperance, the practice of self-control, avoiding excess, and seeking balance in all aspects of life. These principles may seem simple, but they require daily commitment. Stoicism challenges us to act with virtue in all our interactions and decisions, striving for excellence in our behavior, rather than seeking to satisfy our desires or meet external expectations. The daily practice of Stoicism. How to apply it in your everyday life. Now, you may be wondering, how can I apply Stoicism in my life? The answer lies in small daily practices that help strengthen our minds and develop our ability to maintain emotional control in the face of adversity. One simple yet powerful practice recommended by the Stoics is daily reflection. At the end of the day, take a few minutes to reflect on your actions and reactions. Ask yourself, how did I react to the situations I face today? Was I guided by reason and virtue? This constant reflection is a form of self-awareness and allows you to learn from your mistakes, grow stronger, and become wiser over time. Another helpful exercise is negative visualization. This might seem strange at first, but the idea is to think about the difficulties you might face as a way of preparing mentally for them. The Stoics believed that by imagining adversities before they occur, you can be better prepared to face them with serenity and clarity. Instead of being caught off guard, you will have already trained your mind to deal with the unexpected in a calmer way. Additionally, the Stoics suggest that we practice detachment. This means learning not to be overly attached to external things, such as material possessions or social recognition. When we detach from these desires, we gain more freedom and inner peace. After all, as Marcus Aurelius said, what you lose was never truly yours. What you have is only what you can give and receive with wisdom. Stoicism in the modern world. In an increasingly fast-paced and distracted world, Stoicism offers us an anchor. It teaches us not to be swept away by the tide of emotions and events that often seem beyond our control. Instead of reacting impulsively, Stoicism invites us to breathe, reflect, and choose our actions wisely. The beauty of Stoicism is that it can be practiced by anyone, at any time, and in any circumstance. If you're looking for more balance, more control, and more meaning in your life, Stoicism provides the right tools for you. The second lesson, accepting fate and death with serenity. One of the greatest lessons the Stoics teach us is how to deal with the uncertainty of life and the inevitability of death. It may seem like a heavy topic, but in Stoic philosophy, it is fundamental for understanding true freedom and the value of every moment. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, reflected deeply on death and left us a legacy of teachings that help us confront it serenely. He said, "It is not that death is a bad thing, but our aversion to it is." For him, the fear of death is one of the greatest sources of human suffering. Instead of living in fear of the end, he invites us to accept death as part of nature. The big idea of Stoicism is that life is short, and by living in fear of what is to come, we fail to appreciate the present. Therefore, one essential exercise the Stoics propose is to reflect on our finitude. By meditating on death, you not only prepare yourself for what is inevitable, but also come to value what you have now more deeply. If you knew tomorrow was not guaranteed, how would you live today? This question, proposed by the Stoics in their daily meditations, helps shift our perspective on time and the value of our actions. But Stoicism doesn't only speak about death in an abstract way. It invites us to embrace the idea that everything has its time and purpose. Contrary to what many people do by trying to avoid thinking about death, the Stoics argue that accepting it gives us more freedom to live fully and with purpose. The concept of amor fati, love your fate. Another profound teaching of the Stoics is the concept of amor fati, or love of fate. This principle teaches that we should accept everything that happens to us, both the good and the bad, as part of our destiny. Amor fati is more than simply passively accepting difficulties. It is learning to love life in its entirety, including the difficult moments and adversities that arise along the way. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic philosopher, writes in his Meditations, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." He was teaching us that the difficulties we face, no matter how painful they may be, have a purpose and are part of a greater whole. Rather than resisting what happens to us, we should seek to find meaning and lessons in every experience. Adversity, in this sense, becomes fertile ground for our personal growth. The practice of amor fati involves transforming resistance into acceptance. When something negative happens, whether a setback at work, a personal loss, or a mistake we made, instead of fighting against reality or lamenting, we can shift our perspective and ask, what can I learn from this? How can this help me become a better person? By learning to love our fate, no matter how challenging it may be, we acquire an incredible inner peace. Detachment from expectations, the key to inner peace. The Stoics also teach us the practice of detachment from expectations. In a world where people constantly expect things to happen in a certain way, detachment helps us find balance and serenity, regardless of what happens. What the Stoics teach us is that desires and expectations about how things should be are one of the main sources of suffering. When we expect the world to be one way, but it turns out to be another, we suffer from frustration. But if we can detach ourselves from expectations and accept life as it is, we free our hearts and minds from unnecessary burdens. Epictetus has one of the most powerful passages on this. Do not seek that events should happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will have peace. This simple yet profound phrase teaches that true inner peace comes when we free ourselves from expectations and accept things exactly as they are, without resistance. This doesn't mean that we should be passive or uninterested. On the contrary, Stoicism teaches us to take conscious actions focused on things that are within our control, but with an open mind and without attachment to the outcome. If you do your best and accept that not everything will be under your control, you have already done your part. True happiness, according to the Stoics, doesn't come from achieving specific results, but from how we live the process and how we act with virtue and wisdom. How to use Stoic practice in your daily life. Now, you may be asking yourself, how can I begin to incorporate these ideas into my routine? Stoicism, as I have already mentioned, is a practical philosophy. It doesn't require you to become an academic philosopher, but rather to begin changing your mindset and the way you deal with everyday situations. Here are some practices you can apply immediately to start living more stoically. 1. The practice of negative visualization. Imagine the worst possible scenario. What would happen if you lost your job, if a loved one became ill, or if an unforeseen event occurred? While this may seem like a negative approach, this exercise of visualizing the worst can help you mentally prepare for difficult situations, making them less frightening when they happen. 2. Reflection at the end of the day. As part of your daily practice, take a few minutes in the evening to reflect on what happened during your day. Ask yourself, did I act virtuously? Did I maintain serenity in the face of difficulties? What can I do to improve? This isn't a negative critique, but a way to learn and grow from each experience. 3. Cultivate gratitude. One of the most powerful practices of Stoicism is gratitude. Instead of focusing on what you don't have or what went wrong, focus on what went right and what you are grateful for. Gratitude helps us maintain a positive perspective and appreciate what we have, instead of losing ourselves in the constant desire for more. 4. Detachment from outcomes. Remember that we can't control everything, so when pursuing our goals, we should do our best, but let go of the need for absolute control over the results. Live in the present moment, focusing on the action, not the expectation. True freedom, being free from external emotions. True freedom, for the Stoics, is not having the ability to do everything we want, but having the ability to not be enslaved by our emotions or by external circumstances. To be free is to have the power to choose how we react to any situation, without being consumed by anger, fear, or desire. When we achieve this, we reach an inner peace that nothing and no one can take away from us. The third lesson, Stoic resilience, overcoming adversities with wisdom. If there is one thing that characterizes Stoic philosophy, it is its emphasis on resilience. Resilience is not just surviving difficult times, but facing them with dignity, wisdom, and self-control. For the Stoics, there are no inherently good or bad events. What matters is how we choose to respond to them. Life inevitably presents us with difficulties, losses, betrayals, and frustrations. But the big question is, how do we respond to these challenges? Will we succumb to suffering and indignation, or will we use these experiences to grow and become stronger? The Stoic philosophers teach us that adversities are disguised opportunities. Pain, failure, crises, and obstacles are not seen as something to be feared but as natural parts of the process of development. Contrary to what many may believe, true strength of character does not come from a life free of difficulties, but from the ability to remain calm and act rationally, even in the most difficult times. In a world where people often seek happiness in external achievements such as professional success, money, or social recognition, Stoicism offers a radically different perspective. True happiness comes from within, from mastering our own emotions and thoughts. For the Stoics, adversity is fertile ground for cultivating virtue, and each challenge is an opportunity to exercise our courage, wisdom, and temperance. Seneca, one of the most well-known philosophers of the Stoic school, spent much of his life dealing with personal and political adversities, and he understood deeply what it meant to maintain serenity in the face of hardship. In one of his writings, he reminds us, difficulty is the opportunity to test character. What he means is that difficulties are not merely obstacles on the path, but tests that allow us to reveal our true inner strength. This means that, when facing a challenge, we can ask ourselves, how can I use this situation to grow as a person? How can I learn from this? By changing our perspective on difficulties, We can transform each obstacle into an opportunity for personal growth. The challenge of control, learning to control our emotions. At the heart of Stoicism lies the idea of inner control. When we think of control, we typically imagine something related to the external world, controlling people, controlling outcomes, controlling events. But Stoicism teaches us something quite different. True control lies within us. What we need to control is not others or what happens around us, but our own emotions, desires, and reactions. Instead of being enslaved by anger, fear, or anxiety, the Stoics teach us to cultivate a state of serenity in the midst of life's storms. This does not mean being insensitive or indifferent to difficulties, but rather having the ability not to be dominated by our emotions. Instead, we should act rationally, in accordance with our best self, and make decisions based on reason, not emotional impulses. Epictetus, perhaps the most practical of the Stoic philosophers, reminds us that it is not the things that happen to us that disturb us, but rather what we think about them. He suggests that by changing the way we perceive events, we can change our reactions. For example, if someone insults us, the problem is not the insult itself, but our interpretation of the insult. We can choose to react with anger, or we can choose to view the insult as an opportunity to exercise patience and resilience. This ability to choose how to respond is what gives us true freedom. And by detaching from the need to control what is beyond us, we learn to focus on what really matters, our character and our actions. When we become more aware of what is within our control, we can stop suffering over external situations and begin to live with greater clarity and purpose. The power of the mind. How to cultivate rational thinking in Stoicism. Stoicism is not just a philosophy about how to act, but also about how to think. The mind, for the Stoics, is the center of our experience. Everything we experience is filtered through our mind, and it is our thoughts that determine how we perceive the world and react to it. The Stoics teach us that we must cultivate a rational and disciplined mind, one that is able to evaluate situations objectively, without being swayed by emotions. This is the opposite of how many people react automatically to their circumstances, allowing themselves to be dominated by impulses, expectations, and fear. Instead, Stoicism teaches us to evaluate reality with clarity, make conscious choices, and act in alignment with our values. A key technique for cultivating this mental discipline is constant reflection. As I mentioned earlier, the Stoics were known for their daily practices of reflection. This can include journaling, where you record your emotions, actions, and reactions throughout the day, to notice where you are being dominated by impulses and where you can improve. Additionally, it is important to cultivate self-awareness and always question your thoughts. Ask yourself, is this reaction rational? Is this fear grounded in reality? What would be a more virtuous response to this situation? By strengthening our mind with these practices, we can begin to live in a more focused way, free from emotional disturbances. The Stoic goal is to make our mind more like a fortress, where our thoughts are aligned with reason and the values we wish to live by. This gives us immense power to face any situation with balance and wisdom. We are only beginning to explore the depths of Stoicism. In the next steps, we will continue to understand more about how this philosophy can be applied practically in our daily lives and how it can help us live in a fuller, wiser, and more serene way. But before that, I want to hear from you. What has resonated most with you so far? Leave a comment below, share your experiences with Stoicism or any difficulties you have faced recently, and how you think this philosophy can help you. Don't forget to leave a like to support the channel, and subscribe to follow the next parts of this journey. The fourth lesson, the practice of self-sufficiency, finding strength within yourself. One of the most powerful messages of Stoicism is the idea of self-sufficiency. The Stoics teach us that true freedom and happiness do not depend on external factors such as wealth, fame, or the approval of others. Instead, we should seek strength within ourselves, in the mastery of our own virtues, thoughts, and actions. For the Stoics, the greatest wealth we can have is the ability to be strong enough to rely on ourselves. Epictetus, one of the greatest masters of Stoicism, stated that a man is as free as he is self-sufficient. This means that by developing our ability to live in harmony with our reason, to make decisions aligned with our nature, and to be guided by virtue, we can achieve a state of true freedom. True freedom does not come from the ability to do everything we want, but from the ability to act with wisdom and self-control in any circumstance. When we talk about self-sufficiency, we are not referring to isolation or selfishness. On the contrary, The Stoics advocate the idea that we are part of a larger community and should live in a way that contributes to the common good. However, self-sufficiency teaches us not to depend on external factors for our happiness. If something is taken from us, whether it be a prestigious position, a relationship, or a large amount of material possessions, our inner peace should remain intact. True satisfaction lies in our ability to act virtuously, regardless of what the external world offers us. Life in action. How to live Stoic philosophy in daily life. Now, we may be starting to understand the great ideas of Stoicism, but how do these ideas translate into concrete actions in daily life? The beauty of this practical philosophy is that it can be applied to all aspects of everyday life. Stoicism is not an abstract philosophy or distant from reality. It is a philosophy for living. Let's look at how Stoic principles can be applied practically. 1. Develop mindfulness. The Stoics encourage a life of mindfulness, meaning being fully present in the moment. This means that when you do something, you should dedicate yourself entirely to the task, without external or internal distractions. By dedicating yourself to the present and accepting the moment as it is, you do not allow yourself to be overwhelmed by anxieties about the future or regrets about the past. One of the greatest challenges in modern life is the constant distraction of attention, but with the practice of mindfulness, we can bring our minds back to the now and act with more clarity and purpose. 2. Face suffering with courage. No matter how challenging a situation may be, Stoicism teaches us to face suffering with courage. Suffering is inevitable in life, but how we handle it is what truly matters. Instead of avoiding or fearing pain, we should accept it as part of the human growth process. By practicing Stoic courage, we can transform adversity into an opportunity to test and strengthen our inner resolve. 3. Practice self-control and temperance. In the modern world, we are often bombarded with external stimuli that encourage us to seek instant gratification. Food, entertainment, consumption, and so on. Stoicism teaches us that self-control and temperance are fundamental to a balanced life. The constant pursuit of pleasure or comfort takes us away from true inner peace. The practice of temperance involves moderation, knowing what is enough and learning to control our impulses and desires. By cultivating the ability to moderate our reactions, we can create a more stable life, less dependent on external variations. 4. Live with purpose and altruism. Stoicism teaches us to live according to our rational nature and in harmony with others. This means acting with justice, always seeking the common good, and being benevolent toward others. Instead of focusing only on our own interests, the Stoics advocate that we should be useful to society, acting in a way that contributes to the well-being of all. This altruistic approach allows us to live a life with a deeper purpose, knowing that our actions have a positive impact on the world around us. 5. Reflect daily. As I mentioned earlier, the practice of daily reflection is one of the most powerful tools of Stoicism. By dedicating a few minutes every day to analyze your actions, thoughts, and emotions, you can get to know yourself better and improve your conduct. Ask yourself, was I virtuous today? Did I make rational and just decisions? How can I be a better person tomorrow? This ongoing exercise of self-analysis and constant improvement is key to evolving and becoming wiser over time. The relationship between Stoicism and happiness. One of the deepest ideas in Stoicism is that true happiness does not depend on external circumstances, but on our ability to act in accordance with reason and the principles of virtue. Unlike popular notions of happiness, which are often based on the acquisition of material goods or social status, Stoicism teaches us that true happiness comes from within and is found in the mastery of our mind and actions. The Stoics believe that all human beings have a rational nature and that our happiness is directly related to our ability to live in accordance with that reason. Instead of seeking happiness in external things, we should seek happiness through self-mastery, virtue, and wisdom. When we are able to control our emotions, make decisions based on reason, and act with courage and justice, we find a kind of happiness that is not affected by external circumstances, but by our own integrity and character. As we continue to delve deeper into the teachings of Stoicism, don't forget to leave a comment below to share your thoughts on these concepts. They may seem simple at first glance, but when put into practice, they can completely transform our approach to life. Like the video if you're enjoying the content, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do so now to follow the next part of this philosophical journey. The 5th lesson, the importance of virtue, the foundation of Stoicism. At the core of Stoicism is the idea that virtue is the only true good, and that by living in accordance with it, we can achieve a full and satisfying life. For Stoic philosophers, virtue is not just a desirable quality, it is essential to happiness. They believed that true happiness comes from the development and practice of moral virtues, such as wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. In other words, it is not about what we possess or what we achieve, but about the kind of person we are and the choices we make. The Stoics believed that, no matter how external circumstances may change, our internal virtue is something always within our control. Therefore, when we seek wisdom, we aim to understand the nature of things and live rationally. Justice teaches us to act with fairness and consideration toward others. Courage enables us to face life's difficulties and adversities with resolve, and temperance helps us maintain balance, avoiding excesses that might lead us astray from our goal. The great master Epictetus wrote, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." This central concept of Stoicism teaches us that true virtue lies in how we handle the situations life presents to us, especially when faced with challenges. Stoicism invites us to act with virtue in all situations, seeing challenges not as obstacles but as opportunities to exercise our highest qualities. Wisdom, the central pillar of virtue. Among all the virtues, wisdom holds a central position in Stoicism. For the Stoics, wisdom is the ability to make sound decisions, act rationally, and always strive for continuous improvement. They believed that by cultivating wisdom, we become better able to perceive the truth of things, distinguishing what is within our control from what is not. Wisdom allows us to see situations clearly and act with discernment, without being overwhelmed by emotions. Justice, the relational virtue. Justice in Stoicism refers to our ability to act justly toward others, treating them equitably without prejudice or favoritism. Justice is not just about following laws or rules. It also involves treating others with respect, empathy, and consideration. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote about this in his Meditations, emphasizing the importance of acting in accordance with the common good and treating others with dignity, even when their actions may not align with that principle. Courage, the strength to face adversity. Courage is another fundamental virtue in Stoicism. It is not just about physical bravery, but also about moral courage, the strength to face life's difficulties and challenges without giving up. For the Stoics, courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act virtuously even when fear is present. This means, for example, facing a difficult situation with dignity and integrity, even when the circumstances seem unfavorable. Temperance, the control of desires. Finally, temperance is the virtue that helps us maintain balance and avoid excess. In Stoicism, this is related to controlling our desires and impulses, especially with regard to physical and emotional pleasure. By practicing temperance, we learn to moderate our reactions and actions, always seeking a healthy balance between our desires and our needs. Control over our own desires, for the Stoics, is essential for maintaining serenity and inner peace. The challenge of living according to reason. The Stoics believed that living in accordance with reason was no simple challenge. Life constantly places us in situations where emotions and desires try to lead us away from the path of virtue. However, it is precisely at this point that Stoicism becomes powerful. It teaches us to remain calm and act rationally, even in the most challenging situations. This involves constant practice of self-control, reflection, and deliberate effort to improve our behavior. Living according to reason does not mean becoming a cold or insensitive person. On the contrary, reason allows us to act in a deeper and more conscious way, understanding our emotions and using them as tools, rather than being dominated by them. Virtue, for the Stoics, is living in accordance with our rational nature, allowing us to achieve a fuller and more satisfying life, regardless of external circumstances. The importance of Stoic philosophy in the modern world. In today's world, many of us find ourselves in a place full of distractions, where external pressures, consumerism, and the search for immediate pleasure can steer us away from our true goal, to live virtuously and rationally. Stoicism, with its emphasis on self-mastery, wisdom, and inner tranquility, offers a way to restore this balance. In a world where we are constantly pressured to follow trends or give in to social expectations, the teachings of the Stoics invite us to live according to our own principles, not according to what the world tells us to do. They teach us that true value lies in how we choose to act, how we deal with adversity, and how we stay true to our virtues. Moreover, in a global context of constant uncertainty and rapid change, Stoic principles offer a way to live with more resilience and clarity, no matter what happens around us. Stoicism provides us with the tools to maintain emotional balance, make wiser decisions, and act with greater wisdom in all areas of our lives. Now that you're beginning to understand the fundamental lessons of Stoicism, I want to know from you, which of these virtues resonates most with your life? How can you incorporate the practice of Stoicism into your daily routine? Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts and experiences with Stoic philosophy. And don't forget to like the video, it helps the channel a lot. If you haven't subscribed yet, do so now to follow the next part, where we will explore even further how Stoicism can transform your life. See you in the next video.